Hey folks, this is Dr. Van Breeding. At MCHC, we've secured the best providers and medical staff to care for you and your family. But sometimes your health may require more specialized treatment. MCHC has great relations with the best specialists in Hazard, Pikeville, or Lexington, making sure your referral is handled in a timely manner. Your health is the number one priority of ours, and the ability to care for you is just another way Mountain Comprehensive Health Corporation is providing better health for a longer life.
Hey, this is Oliver Simmons. You're listening to You Know the Drill with Wes and Brady.
This is Aaron Harrison. You listening to You Know the Drill with Wes and Brady.
It's Alex Fortress. I'm on with You Know the Drill with Wes and Brady, and hopefully it should be a good time.
Brady, you know, it's even crazier now because we've started YouTube, and man, I'm going to be honest, I can't even figure out how to share all this stuff at this point.
We're sharing everywhere. Like
Sharing
Uber everywhere. We're sharing everywhere.
You know, it's crazy. I don't know that I can share our YouTube feed because I'm logged into our YouTube. It's kind of wild. Oh, maybe
Where you would, I mean, you can share it. I think just put it on your Twitter. Put it out to the masses. But how's everybody doing tonight, Wes? Come on, man.
Man, we're here. I'm doing good. I was
up?
a little bit worried about it first, Brady. You hopped on here. I was about to call Emily and ask what was going on. You hopped
I
on
got
here.
my rag. I mowed the backyard. So I had a last minute decision where I was going to mow the backyard when we were sitting out there. And I was like, I don't want to do it tomorrow. So
I understand that. Man, I tell you, you need to get one of those, Brady, one of those robot mowers.
like what's it called that vacuums?
Yeah, but they make them.
A Roomba. What would you even name it? A Roomba mow.
They make them. I don't know what they're called. They make them. Brady, I tell you what, if I win the lottery, that's the first thing I'm gonna buy.
So
both.
I'm going to start this off. I mean, this is a great hypothetical, and maybe we ask our fans at the end of it, but I was mowing, and to kickstart this off, I had a thought, with the Masters going on, you got baseball season, it's kind of like a would you rather hypothetical to kick this thing off. So would you rather be on the grounds crew of Augusta National, where you get to mow Augusta National, or would you rather be able to mow Yankee Stadium or your favorite professional MLB team? Or would you rather be like the head of mowing, I threw these two in kind of the same category, Lambeau Field or Notre Dame's football, the grounds. What would you rather do?
I think I would have to go with the Augusta National, Brady, just because I'm sitting here thinking, right? Like, I love the Yankees, but man, it would be so beautiful at Augusta. What do you think? What's yours?
I think Augusta, but it would be pressure. I mean, like you make one wrong turn and you're done. You're fired. I mean,
which one of us would be the guy that? Tanner is our first ever YouTube comment.
That was great. We've been waiting on that.
First ever. Which one of us would be the guy that if we were mowing Yankee Stadium, Brady, we would like accidentally mow a C for the Reds?
I would, you know how they do the lines? I wouldn't stay in a straight line. It'd be like a little like curved. But you know what? Grass grows back, though. That's the beautiful thing about grass.
I think the first call would be to our buddy Marcus.
Yes, Marcus. We need to have him back on, which he's about to snow. But Wes, yep. I have one more other hypothetical for you. Again, this is kind of like Mower Chronicles before we do have a guest today, which you'll announce. But would you rather be a caddy for Tiger Woods one round, or would you rather rebound for Michael Jordan and get one like a dinner with Jordan? Because you got to have the kind of the timing, right? Like you're going to be a Tiger for about 4 hours. Would you rather rebound for MJ for a workout and then go to dinner with him? Let's say you're going to B-Dubs.
At this point, I'm going to caddy for Tiger Woods because I feel like that dude is wild as hell, and that could be the most exciting night of your life if you caddy for Tiger Woods.
You have to drive the golf cart.
I don't want to be the dude is the worst drunk driver of all time. We've already decided, right? Like he can't even drink a sweet tea and drive at this
I don't
point.
know how you flip a Range Rover. Those things are like one of the heaviest cars in the world. I actually, knock on wood, I don't know how I would topple my car. I have no idea. Watch, tomorrow I'll do it.
Knock on wood right now. Which one are you? Like, I feel like Michael Jordan's almost boring at this point. What do you think?
Man, will it be Michael and his? Well, I guess you got to go with the same age. I guess you got to go same age, but I'd probably, you know what? I think you get more conversation out of Jordan, though. Because I think Tiger, if you're golfing and caddying with him, do you think he's probably a silent guy? Like, I don't know. It's a hard question, but I see the benefits of both.
The good thing with caddying for Tiger, I wouldn't have a clue what I was doing, so I wouldn't really give a shit. I think if I was rebounding for Michael Jordan, I would get so nervous. I would look like you coming back from mowing the yard. I'd be sweating, and I would make a really bad pass, and he would cuss me out because I would like throw it at his feet or something. And then
we all know you're a role player, Wes. You got good crisp passes.
Thumbs in, baby. You got to flick it. Speaking of basketball, Brady, before our guest does hop on here in a few minutes, it is, I think about our friend Travis Branham, and does he get any sleep right now?
I did a sanity check on him earlier. He said he's good. He's good.
So he's good.
I think last year was a little tough on him. You know, it was kind of his first massive portal overhaul where, you know, the rules were completely, you know, one-time transfers. But I think he's got it under control right now. I feel like I get a tweet notification from him about every 5 minutes.
Yeah. It's if you subscribe or follow Travis Branham on Twitter, you're getting a notification every 2 seconds. Tanner, listen, I'm just hoping that I'm not even going to say it because I'm going to jinx us. But Tanner, what you want to do? Go ahead, Brady.
I think there's a team in Lexington right now that's slowly morphing into a Hoosier.
That's what I was saying. So I do want to talk a little bit about Kentucky, Mark Pope, right? This is a big. I almost feel, Brady, that I called it in our last segment. I called it Operation Clean House, right? Because he got rid of a lot of the staff, a lot of the players are going right off the bat. At this point, since that episode, you now have Brandon Garrison out the door. You have Colin Chandler out the door. You have Jasper Johnson out the door. And I almost feel like Mark Pope is in this standpoint of I went crazy with spending last year. I can't do that shit again, right? I've got to conserve my money. But I also think he realizes that this is what this fan base is. If I don't do something, if something does not change, I'm possibly in the hot seat next year, right? So yeah. I feel like, Brady, I told you on the golf course yesterday, if Mark Pope could win basketball games like he can set up a Zoom call, man.
It's activity, man. It's a crazy time because the portal though, and I had like a very small taste of it. You know, it wasn't a one-time transfer when I was in Arizona State, but the portal was still a thing. And it's all about speed, man, with the portal. It's speed. Like if a kid goes in, you know, it's about getting him on campus or getting him on a call and getting him signed up immediately, like as quick as you can. You got to be kind of the first of the punch. And, you know, if you wait around, dude, you're not going to get them. You know, you don't want to be late.
Agreed. But that being said, you made a comment on the golf course yesterday. I've been wanting to talk about. It's been on my mind. You said a lot of things on the golf course that's on my mind, but the one I guess family rated thing we'll talk about is you mentioned that one of the things you feel like a lot of media hurts Kentucky with is if Mark Pope sends a letter via snail mail to Cody Stumbo in Bowling Green, then KSR and everybody says, oh, it's a portal target. And then if you don't get them, right, and you think about, obviously, Tyron Stokes is not in the portal. He's a high school player. But if he was in the portal, that's a player that obviously you would contact, right? But you can't list everybody as a target per se because, like you said, it's almost a bad rep when you don't get them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a distinct difference between contact and interested, or interested and highly pursuing. I think it's where it gets twisted, but these fans here and media here is so wildly passionate, and it largely comes from a few media members where they're pumping out like, hey, look here, look there. This is what it's like. Just because you text somebody and say, hey, doesn't mean you're like full pursuit. You've got to, I mean, I'd say, I'd say the staff there probably has a board of probably, they've got 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. I wouldn't assume it goes further than D. You probably got 4 or 5 targets per position, but in all seriousness, they're probably serious about 2 guys a position that they really want. But like, it makes you look bad, when the media puts out all of these interests, because a regular fan will see that as you lost a recruit. It's like they might not even have been pursuing them, So
Agreed.
it's hard. You don't want to be a hat at the table, because that's bad. You don't want to be the hat at the table. You don't want to be the final 3 and lose. That's where that's just not a position. Which, oh my gosh, I'm watching the Frozen Four. Michigan's in the title game. What a good time to be a Michigan fan,
What
man.
a good time to be a Michigan. You talked about that a while back, Brady, of even Tennessee, right? At this point, like you're semi good at everything, and it's kind of working out. I want to say, Brady, I want to hear your opinion too. Me and you talked about this just a little bit yesterday. In my opinion, probably the best actual interest of a player that I have seen from Mark Pope in the portal right now could be none other than Rob Wright III. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think he's one that we will get. But to me,
here is Rob.
You don't think they're going to get him?
No.
That's your hot take.
I don't. And here's the big reason, Brady. I don't think. Also, don't know how to.
Your microphone's all messed up now, Wes.
Here we go. Can you hear me?
You must be a good DJ. You got to.
I was trying to mix it up. My mouse actually died, so I'm trying to do everything with this little trackpad, and it's not working out. I don't think we're going to get it. And one of the biggest reasons I don't, Brady, is because Mark Pope secured his first visit for the weekend from a target, and that is Zoom Diallo. And in my opinion, I think Diallo might commit this weekend. That's just me. I don't. That's not inside scoop. That's not. That is me anticipating what I've seen and heard of the interest. I think it could be the first commit this weekend. If you get Zoom Diallo, I don't think you can get Rob Wright III as well, because you've already got Mason Williams.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Rob Wright, for one, he's coming from BYU, so he's got some money. You already know he's got some money in the bag. They pay well there. I'm trying to see. So Rob Wright played on that Montverde team that went undefeated. I think he played with I don't know if it was Cade. I don't know. It wasn't Cade. He played with Derek Queen. Oh, he played with Cooper Flagg. Yeah, he was on that Cooper Flagg team in Montverde. He's a Philly kid. I wouldn't be shocked if he went, somewhere in the Midwest or Mideast but he's a Philly kid, and I think he played team final for a while. But he's a good player. I watched him play. I mean, he played at Baylor. Transferred out to BYU, and but talk to us about Zoom.
Man, I think he's almost one of those things that Kentucky fans will like. Even though I think Rob Wright III is probably the better point guard in the portal right now, Zoom is that player that, kind of like you mentioned, Brady, he's pretty strong, right? I think he can handle a lot of the physicality of the SEC. He's good at getting to the basket, which is what I feel like we need. Now, here's the thing, and I go back to if we do not get Tyron Stokes, I think you've got to fill the floor with some role players and shooters. And Zoom's one of those guys I think that can create space for some shooters on the floor. Got a good jump shot himself and can shoot. So
yeah, well, he shot 30% from three, so that's probably like that's just if you had to make a knock on him, it's his three. What would be interesting is here's the thing you're going to get caught with though, is if he's your starting point guard and you get Tyron Stokes, you're going to have Malachi as your 5. So now your 2 and your 4 have to be shooters because I mean, I've seen Tyron Stokes a lot more now in the recent months, but it's like he's a streaky shooter, like he's a hooper, like he's a rhythm shooter. Like there'll be games where he makes 3 threes because he's in rhythm, but there's going to be games where he makes 0. He's not like a pure shooter. So I think if they get him, as a starting point guard, and one thing I will add too is like if he's coming on a visit, he's going to commit 99% of the time. He's not flying all the way from Washington to just take a 4-hour flight to just, pop his head into Lexington and say hi. But I would venture to say, if he's taking the time to fly out here, he's going to commit. And unless there's a visit that's planned right after, which I haven't heard if there is or not.
So be prepared if you plan on putting your Target suit and tie and your sundress and discount wedges on this weekend and heading over to Keeneland, you're probably going to see Zoom Diallo there, right? That's where is that not where you always take recruits, Brady?
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's the main thing to do. What about the name Zoom? I wish I had the name Zoom.
I do too.
What is it? I don't think though, but that doesn't like. There's nothing about me that like signifies Zoom. Like that's not a good adjective to describe Brady Kennedy. Zoom. Be like.
You did do that 2 mile, Brady, for soccer, and we confirmed it.
That's true.
So
that's true. But I did. I was in shape, but it was, it's a fast time. I think the dead period closes tonight or tomorrow. I think you can start coming on visits. So
yep,
you'll start seeing some movement here. You're going to have your wave. All the coaches, I think, kind of fell into place. I don't think there's any other coaching changes out there. You had Mike Malone get the freaking $8.3 million a year in North Carolina. That's nuts.
That's about it. Yeah. No, I think it's I think it's kind of the portal closes in the 14-day window, so you're going to know everybody in it at that point. I do think you're going to have some guys that drag out for a while. Curious to know about this right before we bring our guest on, Brady. I'm curious to know of the transfers from Kentucky that have entered the portal. We're talking Jasper Johnson, Colin Chandler, Brandon Garrison, Mo Diabate. Which of those will Kentucky fans miss the most? Let me rephrase that. Later down the season, which one of those do you think the fan base will say, man, kind of really wish we had him back?
I would say probably. I think Colin Chandler, I would assume.
Don, you did drop the ball on Zoom. Brady's okay, but Zoom was.
I would probably that was not even top 1,000 names probably. It
says Colin Chandler.
I'm thinking Colin Chandler largely because if this team doesn't get shooting, you're going to be like, well, we let a guy, you're letting a guy walk. And I think there's a lot of rumors thrown out there, by some media people that we see on Twitter a lot that, who's to say he got offered all this money and turned it down? Like he's married. Like, come on, Wes, we're both married. You know how when marriage happens, you get told to do stuff that you don't want to do sometimes, and you got to do it. You never know. Like he like his wife his wife's from I think they're both from Utah. So, stuff happens. So who knows? I bet you that played a huge part in it. And I do think there's a chance he can come back. I saw maybe something where, he would really come back. I don't think it was necessarily all a money thing. I think we'd be stupid to think that.
I agree. I do. I think Colin Chandler had the most pro potential, has the most pro potential of anybody off this team from last season, even more than Otega Oweh. Chandler is a guy that he can knock down the shot from deep. He's athletic. I think his defense will improve, his on-ball defense as they go. I think he's the best potential. The one that is going to be an unpopular opinion that I think late down the season, you're going to wish you had to throw in for spot minutes, because Chandler's not a spot minute guy. Chandler's an on-the-floor dude for you. One of the guys that I think is a spot minute guy that you're going to miss down the road is Brandon Garrison. I hated him at times, Brady. I hated him, right? I can't tell you how many times in the season I sat there in my seat and was like, please get him out.
He did win you 2 big games. And honestly, if you got paid that money and he won you a tournament game, you don't win that game without him. I'm going to ask you another question that maybe some of the dudes, who do you think has the best chance of having a better year than he had this year at his next stop that transferred? So you've got, I really do think Jasper Johnson will be something at some point. And I think it takes a good fit naturally. But I'm telling you, if Mo Diabate goes, I wouldn't be shocked if Mo Diabate is all Big East next year with Patino.
Very well could be. I'm like you. I think Jasper maybe has the most upside. We kind of know what Mo can do, right? We know what he looks. I don't think we've seen what Jasper can do yet.
Yeah.
And I think it is there. He's got, we talked about it a lot last year, Brady, just on the defensive side. Who in the NBA could Jasper guard? And the answer is essentially nobody, right? But I think that improves. I think the guy has an offensive skill set that could be valuable to somebody. And so I think he's probably got the most upside out of anybody that transferred. Wow. Hey, Travis Perry's back in the portal.
Where's he gonna go? I was gonna say Alice Lloyd, but that's not that. It's not. I'm kidding. Hey, he's a hilltopper, man. He's a hilltopper.
Let me tell you,
he needs to go somewhere he can shoot. Like, the dude can shoot. He hasn't hit shots.
He can play, and that's why I think if you send him to Bowling Green, Brady, I think he could be standout player. I really do. I think it takes a little bit of pressure off of him. You're also closer to home, right? Which always helps. I think that could be a good stop. Brady, it's 8:22. Our guest is here with us. I am going to throw us to a super quick 30-second commercial break. Nobody leave. As soon as we come back, we will have our guest here with us. I'm going to give him the grand introduction, the way we do here on You Know the Drill. We'll be right back.
I'm Cheyenne Kristen, dental hygienist at the MCHC Knott County Dental Clinic. Did you know that oral infections and dental disease can lead to other diseases in the body? At MCHC, we believe in yearly checkups and preventative visits so we can decrease your risk while providing great oral care and a healthy smile. So schedule your appointment today by calling 785-0259. Your family's oral health is important to us, and it's just another way MCHC provides better health for a longer life.
Brady, you mentioned Alice Lloyd College, and we talk about it all the time on the show. Brady has, for those of you that haven't heard it, Brady feels like the entire world is connected through Alice Lloyd College, right?
I do. I didn't even know he was. I didn't know he was an Alice Lloyd alum.
Yeah. So it's all connected, Brady. It's all connected. Pippa passes. Our guest today, all right. Not only, Brady, you're going to get a whirlwind right here. Not only is he an Alice Lloyd alum, he is also a Clay County Tiger alum, along with your boy. Shout out Manchester. But Brady, I'm so excited to have him on here. Clay County boy, Alice Lloyd boy, work in the healthcare system with him at this point. He's a lot higher than me and a lot smarter than me, but has his own podcast. I'm really, really curious to hear his plug on that and talk to him a little bit with that. Guys, welcome my good friend, our brother, Zach McGeorge. Zach, what's happening, my man?
He's muted. You're muted.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Hey,
There we go.
Oh, good. Hey, do I refer to you as Blue Jean or Wes tonight in this formal setting here?
Zach, you call me whatever you want to call me, as long as you call me for dinner, baby. I'm ready.
Brady, nice to meet you, man. I've enjoyed the content up to this point.
Nice to meet you. We're excited about this.
Absolutely.
We've been working to get Zach on here for a while. I feel like when me and Zach first talked about getting him on the show, it was right when region tournaments started. It was right when NCAA tournament was going on. And it was like, we went through a spell, Brady, where we weren't on here much. And when we were having to cover some certain stuff. So finally, we worked it out to have another guest on the show. And Zach, I'm glad it's you, my man.
Absolutely. Blue, I can't not call you Blue. I'll try not to sound too corporate lingo whenever I'm doing my introduction and stuff here. But look forward to you peppering me with some questions here.
He must have some dog issues. You have some dogs?
Oh, I'm ready for it. Zach, tell us a little bit about yourself. We know, doctorate of social work. We know you're in that field. We know you do some addiction medicine. You've got your own podcast where you talk about a lot of stuff. You deal with a lot of student athletes. Give us a little background about Zach McGeorge.
Yeah, well, like I said, my name's Zach McGeorge, or like you said, my name's Zach McGeorge. Born and raised here in Clay County, Kentucky. I was a Clay County Tiger, graduated in 2012. And Brady, I don't know if Blue told you too much about me growing up, but I was always the kid in grade school that was a holdback, and I was like a little bit taller than everybody else. And then whenever I got into high school, there was a class in front of me that was a little bit more skilled than I was, and I had to, in order to get playing time, I had to play a role, like be a role player. So I ended up, I was strong, so I would, bang down low with the guys and play the four, but I could also go play point too. So
disclaimer, Brady, I was not on that more skilled team in front of him.
But I was the guy that could kind of, kill you with consistency, so to speak. And then really, I kind of got burnt out on sports just as part of playing and everything, and went to Alice Lloyd on a basketball scholarship there in 2012. And I don't know if he's listening right now, but Isaac Wilson, it's your fault, because I actually took a charge on him, and I got up and I was like, man, something's wrong with my back. And I cracked one of my vertebrae in my low back and could not walk for like 6 months or so. So really, that's whenever I kind of went through my own mental health struggles at the time, because I'd always been a part of a team. I'd always been involved in some sort of extracurricular activities. And then I was walking into the gym there at Alice Lloyd one day, and I saw this guy named Matt Asher doing CrossFit. And I was like, what is that? Like, what in the world is it? And so I asked him, and he showed me what it was. And I was kind of on my rehab journey at the time, and then started competing CrossFit ever since then. And I still do it locally. I still do some conditioning competitions here and there. But I still keep up with a lot of sports. And so long story short, went to UK for my master's and doctorate in social work. And last fall, I saw this certificate through Tulane University for a certificate of sports counseling. And John Summerall, I was like, yes, that's the only reason I really signed up. And I did. It was a 16-week course. And what I've really realized is over the time, I've really been able to blend one of my hobbies and my job too, one and the same, to do sports counseling. Performance counseling for athletes, high school athletes, and also some college athletes too, and have really been enjoying the work with that, with some of the parents, kids in the area that's really struggling with a lot of anxiety and even depression right now.
Zach, I feel like this is a time in the world where that's intensified even more, right? You think about all of the pressures. Zach, when me, you, and Brady played sports, Snapchat didn't exist, right? A lot of this social media stuff you went home on dial-up to try to get on MSN Messenger, right? So
Yeah.
does that play a big role into a lot of what goes on with student athletes today in this council?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can see a strong increase if you look at the data on anxiety and depression. I mean, ever since 2008, anxiety and depression has just skyrocketed in Western culture. But more than anything, well, first of all, on the social media piece for sure, it's a lot of comparison. You know, comparison is the thief of joy oftentimes. And it doesn't matter if a kid goes 10 for 12 from the field, triple double, what have you. Someone else out there is always going to be better than you. At some point, it's just human nature. And like, I think that social media puts like a facade around that. But one of the things that I've kind of been enlightened and, you know, disappointed, curious, all within the realm of emotions that comes with this line of work is the pressure that these kids, not only from social media perspective, but society and their families in general put on them, you know. Place a lot of expectation and pressure, unrealistic expectations sometimes that they oftentimes can't meet up to. And that's a lot of the work that I find myself doing right now.
Well, Tanner is a fan already. What a perfect mix of hobby and profession.
Absolutely.
It is true. It is true. How much of this, and I feel like you being in that role, you went through the process of being a student athlete. At one time in your life, you just told us you felt like you weren't as good as some of the people in front of you, right? At one point in your life. And so how much of that, when you're talking to these student athletes, how much of that resonates with yourself and being able to put yourself into their shoes?
It does a lot, but they actually teach us skills in school to not experience what's called that. I think that clinical term would be countertransference, where I'm trying not to give advice because then that would kind of like change roles as the therapist. But definitely from an empathetic perspective, it allows me to get on their level to say, you know, sometimes you're going to have to raise your ceiling, but other times you have to raise your floor too. I actually. I enjoyed being a role player. Like it was a lot less stressful. Man, we had like JV Hooker, Matt Mitchell, a lot of that class in front of me. And Coach Markle told me, he's like, dude, if you want to play, you're going to have to get 10 rebounds a game. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go Dennis Rodman, like 10 rebounds a game and just shut down their best players. So it's, you know, wherever you can fit into the team is the most fun.
I agree with you. I know Brady has had his own experiences. I'm right there with you, Zach. I can remember almost the same experience with Mike Jones at Clay County, where he essentially pulled me in and said, look, you can't dribble. I don't have time to teach you how to dribble, right? You can't. He's like, you're going to have to play defense and rebound if you're going to play on this team, right? And I loved it because it almost gave you a sense of belonging, right? You had a responsibility you knew you had to do.
Yeah.
Brady was a college
role players
guy.
This should be just renamed the Role Player Podcast because I feel like,
that's right.
I mean, it is what it is. We know our roles and we perfect them. But Zach, one question that I think I can speak to, like, you grew up in Kentucky. You're wearing a Kentucky hat. Like, speak on some of the stuff that you might think like Kentucky players go through as a mental, some of the stuff that you even see on social media or like things you imagine a Kentucky player going through, both football and basketball with all this pressure.
Absolutely. Well, one of the first things that I always say to the athletes is pressure is privilege. You're in a position of pressure. You're in a position where people want to be in that role. Man, you better own it. And like one of the terms that one of my patients said to me the other day was, I don't want to suckle my thumb and take my ball home and not be, in the game. You want to be in the game, But one of the things that I think about oftentimes, even in my own perspective, is my parents didn't really have the resources or the ability to do the things that I had to do, like the extracurriculars. And so they wanted me to have those extracurriculars and wanted me to be so good, so bad that they would take me to all the different camps everywhere in the world and spend, money for me to go here and to go there. And really, that's not what I asked to do at the time. I wish I would have just had more of a say so just to, kind of do what I wanted to do and be a kid. Not to say that like travel ball is not a bad thing at all, but I think that a lot of that's the first thing that I think of is the parents seem to put a lot of pressure on these kids and unrealistic expectations on them. But secondly, I think that whenever the student athletes switch from high school to college, it definitely goes into it's a job at that point, especially with the increase in NIL and having to play, the facilities and practice and everything that they have to go through. It becomes more than just an extracurricular. It's a job at that point. And I think that it somehow changes their mindset around it to say, it's not fun. But sometimes it can't be fun because jobs aren't fun all the time. And so that's two of the things that I see is like a lot of family pressure, a lot of social pressure, and then also like unrealistic expectations about, man, this is a job, and it's sometimes it isn't fun.
Yeah. Well, there's always the saying, more money, more problems sometimes, right? And you can even, when you go to Kentucky games now and you sit in college environments, more than ever, these fans don't have any patience for missed free throws, missed rebounds, turnovers. It's because they're like, well, he's getting paid $1 million. It's a different pressure. And
That's true.
I bet you there's kids out there right now that, would trade in some of that money to not have the heckle. I really do. Like if you talk to a couple kids, maybe 10 years from now, they're probably like, man, I would have gave back $500,000 if I didn't have to deal with the banter on Twitter, or, it's because at the end of the day, they're going to be fine when they get out in the NBA or other, European ball or something like that. It's changed quite a bit. So, I mean, do you think anything's going to change from like, kids transferring? Do you think that has any issues like in terms of mental health, like where, kids, don't push through the challenge of staying at their own school and like they're bouncing around? Like, do you see any of that in your kind of observation?
Man, you are teeing me up for a you're teeing me up for a question. Yes, I absolutely think so, because like one of the things that we always talk about in sports mental health counseling is resilience. Like, and resilience can be this thing that's like over on the far end of the spectrum that's good, or over on the far end of the spectrum that's really a bad thing. Over resilience is not a good thing. I definitely don't want to push that, but like life in general is struggle. That's what life is. It's climbing the mountain, struggling up the mountain, looking over the top, and then finding a new mountain to struggle on. And oftentimes I'm definitely pro student athletes having the option and having the ability to transfer and like if something's better for them, it's a free and open market. But I do think that there has to be and needs to be some parameters around that from year to year. That's just my thoughts on it, because the more that someone can go through hard times or difficult times and stick with a structure and in a system, it can make them better, not only for themselves, but the organization. They can create value for that. I would love to see, transfer rules put back in place instead of this wild, wild west of the NIL right now. Because I do think that it is impacting negatively. It is negatively impacting their mental health in a lot of ways, because just like you said, more money is not always the answer to everything. In a lot of ways, it can be. More money is not necessarily a bad thing at all. But I think from a resilience perspective, there definitely needs to be some parameters around that. That's just my thoughts, but I'm open to discussion about it and open to being wrong about it.
Well, there's new parameters trying to be passed through, the government and the NCAA, where, one-time transfer for free, second time you got to sit, which I think something like that would be helpful, because in general, it will make you think the first time too, right? Like you'll have kids that will be like, I don't want to waste it yet. And you'll have some, so I think it will make you think,
hate him or love him. Every time this conversation gets brought up, I think back to something that was said by Coach John Calipari a while back.
Uh-oh.
One of the things that he brought up, and Zach, I think I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Me and Brady have talked about this. This would never pass, but he threw out this philosophy. What if you could cap what you're allowed to pay a transfer? Let's say $500,000, $1 million for a transfer, but to retain a player is uncapped. And he said, obviously coach quits, coach leaves, free transfer one time, right? whatever, no questions asked, one time, coach leaves or quits, done, right? But if that's not the case, put the cap on the transfer, uncap. And one of the things that he said made him think about this was, obviously he said, I recruit high school players. But he said, these players are not getting degrees. They're spending 5-6 years in college and leaving college without ever having a degree. Because let's face it, if you transfer 5 times, you're not going to get a degree more than likely, right? What's your thoughts on that?
Convoluted question. I'm probably not smart enough to answer that question thoroughly, but I hate to say it, but I think I agree with Cal. I hate to say it. And one of the things, when you look at his 30 for 30, he always said, what was it that the coach of Georgetown, what was the coach of Georgetown's name? The one that
John Thompson?
Yeah, John Thompson. He said, everybody else over here, there's this little world that everybody's, wishes the world was. And then over here in reality land, John Calipari's like right in the middle of that. I feel like that's, that would be great. It's a good system to set up where someone has to go through the resilience of downs and ups and trial and tribulation, so to speak, but it's setting a parameter to leave them options to be able to transfer if they wanted to as well.
I agree with that.
We need to adopt the soccer model. If they transfer, whoever they transfer from, they need to pay the buyout, essentially, is what I think.
Yeah. I mean, how long did the NBA guys sign contracts for? 3 years?
I mean, you got your guys that are like not as good or signing 1-year deals, but you've got guys that are or older. Maybe you can get like for an example, like they're signing maybe minimums or like not as long. But if you got a guy, I mean, it's just it's different. But I think there needs to be, it sucks because like for example, like a Northern Kentucky University could lose their all American player, all conference, and get swiped and nothing's done. Right? They need to give them some like a buyout.
Yeah.
Right? Even if it's $50K, like, dude, so some of these players at other schools are getting paid more than the entire budget for the whole mid-major team they're coming from.
Yeah.
And they need to compensate for it or something.
What about Lane Kiffin though? Whenever he left, what do you do with something like that?
But they bought him out, I think, right? I think they bought him. Like they compensated LSU, right? Or LSU compensated.
They did buy out the contract, yes.
Well, I was all over that. Like whenever that happened, I was like listening to it and raking leaves, and like I was like, I could not stop listening to it because, I started thinking, I was like, the system really is kind of messed up because, the timing of that was absolutely terrible. But then, to my point about the student athletes and mental health too, like who are we to say that like with the open market that we're in right now and capitalism, why can a coach not just leave too? Like if a coach can leave at any time, then couldn't a player breaching their contract? I don't know what the right answer is to it.
Crazy.
One of the things I think about, especially when you think about mental health, I'm sure you two are with me. I feel like in our era of growing up and looking at college, it was always a suggestion to visit as many places as possible into every offer because you have to go where it makes you happy, right? And where you're going to be happy. And with the way NIL is structured, I don't know that players are always going where they are happy, if that makes sense. And I think you could probably even say that with Colin Chandler this year. The kid's probably happier at BYU. I say a kid, he's a grown man, but you know what I'm saying? He's closer to home. It's more, of his culture. But I just think, Brady, we had Aaron Harrison on here. And one of the things, if you remember, he mentioned and if you follow Aaron on social media, he's Kentucky through and through, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things he told us on this show, Brady, you asked him the question. You and Andrew chose Kentucky, but what if North Carolina had offered you $2 million more than what Kentucky did? And he threw out there, I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? You're going to consider North Carolina at that point. So
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these athletes are getting pulled to places that they may not be happier, but they're getting paid more.
Yeah,
Right.
which you see that in the NBA. Like most of those guys that sign free agent contracts, I've always wondered like why are they taking this money to go to like your low markets. It's some of these places are like Memphis. You see like I think it was the Luke Kennard signed like a multi-year deal with the Memphis Grizzlies before he got traded to LA Lakers. It's like money talks, man. I mean, that's a lot of money. It's like, I mean, dude, he's making more money than I'll probably make in like 2 years. It's a crazy thing, but it's wild. And some of these schools that just have unlimited money, it's just there's going to have to be some kind of. I'm afraid Michigan's going to turn into the Dodgers. Is what I'm thinking.
Unfortunately, yeah. Well, like I mean, y'all think about it too. Like, can you imagine coming from from a mental health perspective? Can you imagine coming from high school and then going to college and making like $3 million in 1 year? I mean, you're going from scrapping up enough money for lunch money into $3 million in a year. Can you imagine that?
That's a good question. I'm glad you brought that up. Do you foresee in the future some of these kids that I mean, there's kids getting paid right now, probably $500 to $1 million. Dude, let's even if it's $250,000, like there's kids getting paid that, and that's like the very low end. They might get out and just be a regular business professional or get a regular job. They might be a teacher or something. Like, how do you think that will affect these kids, if any, when they get to the real world and they're like, oh my gosh, like I got to do this and wake up at 6 and do this and what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, like in college, though, that's one of the biggest things that I've seen. It is a job whenever you get to that point. So, I mean, there is merit to that. But, I mean, $250,000 is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. 150,000 is even a lot of money. That's really solid money. But the way that the system is set up, it rewards that. It rewards talent. But I don't know. It kind of reminds me of whenever like veterans come from being overseas and like all these very complex wars, and you're going on Tuesday from potentially stepping on an IED bomb in Iraq to Saturday, you're just, a regular civilian. There's no transition of that. There has to be some sort of transition in place, like through financial coaching, through mental health counseling, something or another, to where these kids get some sort of transition from high school life to college life, especially making that much money in that short amount of time. Because, even Coach Calipari said it, that like most of the kids that he recruited were from a very low socioeconomic status. And so, I mean, you're just looking for problems, especially from mental health and behavioral health issues. If you're coming from not having anything to making multi-million dollars in no time, I don't think that our brains are adapted and wired to handle that amount of change in that a short amount of time. That's just something I see. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'm trying not to focus on the negatives too much.
No,
how something that can be enhanced.
Because I think I might talk to you, Wes, about this or someone, but at least when they're pros, like when they go to the NBA, like for example, I'll use LeBron James as an example. He jumped to the NBA when he was like 18. He was signed these mega Nike deal and whatever. But when he got in that locker room, he was surrounded by about everyone that was anywhere between 40 years old and 20 years old, and they've had money for a while. And so you kind of slide right into that environment, and you kind of, you conform to what you see. You see Darius Miles, I think was on the team, who's been in the league for 10 plus years, and he's a vet. Like, so you kind of can get, trained by just watching and just, have some mentors that have been doing it for a while. But like now you've got a kids full that are 18, 19 years old with each $1.5 million, $2 million in this locker room that's never had it before, with no mentor, with no like guidance. Like at least LeBron had an agent, or had a. Screws are just like, I mean, you could go buy cute, like I don't know, you can go buy whatever you want, like
anything that you wanted. And no 18, my dad used to say that no 18 or 19-year-old needs that much power. Like he would always say that. He's like, that's too much power for an 18 and 19-year-old.
We used to think we were rich when we get like $20 post-game meal money.
Yeah, yeah. But listen, on the flip side of that, I'm all for it. You know, I'm all for it if they're talented and that's what the market incentivizes. Hey, all for it. But just put some parameters around it to keep the kids safe because that's what they are. They're kids.
I agree, and that's one of the things that I always, when a lot of people get really frustrated about this, the NCAA made billions, profited billions off of these players, off of their names for forever. So it's only right that they get compensated for that, right? I agree.
Yes, 100%.
I'm curious, you talked about even that LeBron example just then. I feel like confidence is a big word when it comes to, I think back to myself, there was a lot of times, not only in sports, but in life that I lacked confidence in things. So I'm curious to know, Zach, with your training, with your experience, is confidence something that can be trained or is it personality based?
That's a great question. But if I could have dunked like you back in the day in warmups, I would have all the confidence. Brady, I don't know if did he tell you like
all he could do, man? It's all he could do.
That was it.
I used to have to get to the games early because I was like, I gotta go watch Wes Smith dunk his three because then the refs would come out and then you couldn't like hit the rim anymore.
Always, I thought the dumbest thing, right?
That is.
Come on. Yeah. I mean, I just, I wonder, like, and I feel like as I've gotten older and you gain some knowledge in different aspects, I feel like I've became more confident in things. But, I just wonder, is it something that, can you train someone to be more confident?
I think you can. And this is whenever I got my doctorate, and one of the things, it was a 2-year program. One of the things that I learned within the first 6 months of that is you don't know anything. And like, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it was a 2-year program, a 2-year doctorate program of just continuously getting my face slapped in. Hey, red ink that. This is what you don't know. And so I think that like there's this little quote that really sticks with me all the time, that humility is the basis of all understanding. Mm-hmm. If you can learn to be humble and be very curious, you inevitably learn more along the way. And the more that you learn, the more confident I think that you can get. But it's a continuous journey of that, to say, I'm never going to be there, or I'm never going to be where I want to be, but it's a continuous destination of becoming a little bit more of who I am. But that for me, I always find confidence in knowing that I don't know it and just being honest about something, to say, hey, I don't know anything about this. And then I'm confident whenever I learn more about it. But also, like, from a confidence perspective, as far as tactical playing too, we really try to focus on values-based coaching and values-based skills, psychological skills. And what I mean by that is, we all are we're role player podcasts. If I was told that I had to go out and score 20 and 10 a game, that wasn't what I was wired to do in here. And so as a clinician, my job is to really get in there and help the student athlete be who they are, but also play to an extent of who they are, expressing who they are. Like, you think back in the 90s, Dennis Rodman, the dude was, he operated out of his values better than almost any NBA player of all time. He's a Hall of Famer. And what he averaged, 3 points a game. He knew he wasn't going to be a Jordan. Not everybody can be a Jordan. And like Pippen, I love the 90s Bulls. Like, I'm absolutely obsessed with them. But it's all about like knowing your role and playing to your strengths and being humble enough to admit that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you need to be on like some basketball staff, because or really in general, because I think that's where guys, you recruit like all these team coaches that are examining the portal right now, right? It's like,
yep.
And I think you kind of saw it this year with Kentucky. You had a lot of guys, they were forced to play, or thought they could play, and they were better than they were. And it's just not who they were. And I think that's where 95% of some of these coaches in teams they fail. I think you ultimately fail because you thought a kid was better than he was. That's really it. And it just becomes a really toxic environment when you keep trying to pull it out of them. And
what? So I don't know if y'all have talked about this before, but what happened after the Louisville game? Or before the Louisville game? What happened?
So I'm torn about this a little bit, Zach, and here's the reason I'm torn. At the very first thought when that happened, and then later on, Mark Pope comes out and says, it was actually nothing. We turned it on a little too early. They were jawing with fans, and then we were hot for too long. When I first heard that, I was like, bullshit, right? Like, dude, you let something slip that you didn't mean to let slip, and now you're trying to. But the longer it's went, I felt like, and let me preface this by saying, I am a Mark Pope fan, and I think he's good. But I'll be the first to tell you, I think he absolutely sucks with the media. So that being said, I don't know, Zach. Maybe that was it. Maybe he made a big deal out of nothing because he was in the moment with the media.
I hope I'm not going too much over here. I'm enjoying the discussion, but I think that if you're going to switch coaches, you have to go a complete different direction than the one that was before there, because everyone's inevitably just going to compare him to Cal if not careful. I've told my wife this, though. He is a data and analytic freak. Let him do that. Get him a GM. I'm not 100% sure about this new hire. I'm not. I don't know. But get him a GM and get him a PR person, because after he loses, he takes on the feeling of the fan base, and we don't need that. We need him to be tough, like let's go kick somebody in the face. That's what the fan base needs. And so you get him a PR, you get him a GM, I think you'll be okay.
I couldn't agree more. I'm a fan. I think that it can happen. I think you're right. PR is a big thing for him, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think about
he's not doing well at it.
No. And he has to be a leader. And I think about sometimes what if the president of a country, the president of the US sometimes got up and brought about the emotions he brought about during some of these press conferences. I was like,
yeah. And what do you from a psychological standpoint, do you I don't know if this is even a good question, but I'm just thinking his mindset, right? You kind of take on the personality of the team takes on the personality of your coach, right? So you've got Danny Hurley, dude. He's got his way of just working, and you got to recruit personalities to that kind of culture. You look at Mark Pope, who's completely different. I've never been in a practice, but I've heard it's really positive. He's more of a comforting guy.
Yeah.
How, do you see even in your time, contrasting personalities, maybe really hurting a kid or hurting, if you're not in that right environment?
That's a perfect question. You have to find people. I think that this would go for any organization, like any leader in any organization. You have to find people that are mission fit to it. But his obligation is to the team and to the organization and finding players that fit within that system. That's where Cal went wrong, where he'd say we're a players first program. Sometimes, it worked for a long time, but I think he lost sight psychologically. He lost sight of the fan base. What do I know? I'm just a guy from Manchester, and I don't know, but I can be a little bit critical.
I trust you, Zach. I've got faith in you, man.
But Mark Pope, I think they mismanaged the roster this year. That's my thoughts. Tactically, I think they mismanaged the roster because they weren't tough last year. And then, finding people that are mission fit to that, because he's who he is. He has to please, of course, the Kentucky fan base. But if he's always, straddle polling between wanting to support the kids versus the university, I think that could be psychologically hard for him. But he does do a good job of wanting to say, hey, we're wanting people that want to stay here, that know what it's like to, wear the uniform. All those are good, positive things. But seeing it on the court this year, I didn't see it.
That leads me into a thought to combine a lot of the things we've talked about in the sense, we've talked about this fan base, we talked about all these things. One of the things that jumps out to me in an overall perspective is all the exposure because of social media, because of is unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of the hardest jobs. I think it's the hardest job in college basketball because of the fan base and that exposure. We have one of the largest fan bases in the country, one of the most passionate fan bases in the country. Zach, talk a little bit about these players who are constantly seeing themselves criticized, their name dragged through the mud on Twitter every time they get on there. How difficult is that not only for a player, but as a coach who your players are seeing all of this, no matter how hard you try to keep them off of it?
Right. Have you I think we've all been there before, maybe not to that extent or to that level, but we've had people that's, talked about us before or been, criticized us before, and it doesn't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I always work with on my students, what was it back in the day? Was it topics? Y'all remember topics was like the main thing.
I don't know if y'all had a lot of that in Northern Kentucky, Brady, but Eastern Kentucky topics was like,
it was
hot topics.
It was.
They were hot. They were hot.
Topics.
It went over my head.
Yeah, well, topics was like this anonymous forum back in the day where anybody could get on there and make like a post about like any of the high school kids or anything like that. But I remember myself looking at something that was said about me, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like they don't like me. No one likes me. Like no one wants to be my friend. And of course, like if you start generating in life the circumstances you feel you deserve, and then you'll start, hunching down with your show, your posture won't be as good, and you'll lack the confidence. But one of the things that I always work with on my student athletes is a psychological term called retro viewing. And retro viewing is just a fancy psychological term for giving yourself a 10,000 foot view. Okay. And like what it does is it gives you perception, and like you're kind of like looking at yourself as a friend and saying, okay, if I was in this situation, experiencing this situation from a high level view, what would you tell yourself, or how would you tell yourself to deal with this right now? And it's really powerful. And a lot of kids, especially adolescents, are smarter than what we give them credit for.
Sure.
They're sharp psychologically. They give themselves that different perspective of retro viewing, and they'll say, you know what? Maybe I need to give myself a little bit of grace, or maybe I need to cut myself a little bit of slack. Or I'll say, well, what else? I had a kid last week saying, yeah, probably need to put your phone up, and just let it go, because the tension's not going anywhere. But you constantly have to be this voice of wisdom to yourself to allow yourself to kind of, debrief, decompress, and just get away from it for a little bit. And then that decreases a little bit more of that codependency on relying on coach or relying on other people, but you can kind of give yourself what you need, which is healthy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Just curious, Zach. I know we're getting close to time.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I've loved this. This has been great. I'm curious. Obviously, we acknowledge HIPAA. We're HIPAA protecting here on the drill. Have there been any cases or any counseling that you've seen where these situations have arose? And give us, without saying any names, without giving away anything, what is a good scenario where you have seen players struggle with this as a mental health challenge? And what were they able to do to overcome it? And did they overcome it?
One of the things I got to be careful about breaking PHI or HIPAA or anything like that, as you know. But one of the things that comes to mind is kind of like an expectation versus reality. And something I hear all the time, especially, and like I said, I find myself doing a lot more family therapy than I do like performance counseling, especially in the initial. But I've got a one-liner right here with a lot of parents, and I use it all the time. But one of the things that I always hear is that, man, this mental health stuff, it didn't exist. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's not real. And so usually I'll kind of do something like a little bit of candor and take my glasses off or something. And I'll say, Michael Jordan took a 18th month hiatus, because his dad got murdered. He did something absolutely crazy and went and played baseball. We didn't call it or we didn't label it mental health back then, but
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure that he was anxious. I'm pretty sure that he was probably having some irritability. And if you look, like I said, I'm a huge Bulls fan, had his guy Gus right next to him and, was really close to his family. So, yeah, I mean, it's real. It's a real thing. And so I think that just the stigma aspect of it it's still really prevalent, but you're seeing a lot more people come around to it. It's been around a long time, but now we just have a different name to it. And then after we get past those initial acute phases, we can get into more skills-based stuff.
No, I think that's great. And you're exactly right. I feel like that's one of the fallbacks, like you said, is a lot of people say, well, this didn't exist or we didn't have that back then, but it did. It was just labeled different, right?
Right. Well,
Right.
and it's more private. Like, I feel like everybody's life is out there on social media now, right? It's like if you were going to go do, your mental health stuff or whatever, like, and you had to see it, it's like, people know you're there sometimes because it's just there's more access to people now. And you were easier to hide back in the day, that, with no cell phones, no social media, you could hide and,
Right. Right.
Not to throw any viewers or commenters out there, but you ever see any of this mental health challenge in pickleball?
Joe doesn't have mental health issues because he wins every game. So
That's true. That's true. Yeah. He's
Joe experiences more injuries in pickleball than he does wins. I think he's just coming off. I think he's about there we go. Do you think pickleball will be
I think we're on the way, Joe. I think we're on the way. Listen, Zach, you're like me. Let me tell you a little backstory on Zach here. Zach is
Oh gosh, I don't even know what this story is going to be.
Zach's a competitor, man. I've known Zach a long time, and Zach's like me, and Zach is in the professional space of mental health counseling and things like that. But I know he's just like me. He don't like to lose. And man, I'm telling you, in my age that I'm at right now, when pickleball is dangerous for me, man, I get mad sometimes.
Yeah. I still compete CrossFit or like locally a little bit every now and then, but we were playing down at the Christian Youth Center there about 3 months ago or so, and this kid like checked me. I'd been playing probably 4 games in a row, and he checked me, and then I was like, okay. And then he come in and he checked me again. I was like, man, we're playing at the CYC. Come on, man. Like, and he come in again and hit me again. I said, all right, last time. And then but I can't do what I used to do. So it kills my soul.
I totally get it. Totally get it. And then you don't heal back as quick anymore either.
I know it.
Well, next time we'll do a live show from your CrossFit. We'll do Wes. It'll be Wes versus Zach on how many pull-ups, the pull-up challenge.
There we go.
Zach, do you still have your podcast?
I've not done that in a long time just because of other competing priorities and stuff, but I have been wanting to get one back up and running. We did a Kentucky Mountain Fitness podcast. We had some really good guests on there, but just got super swamped with everyday life. But I am thinking about starting one back here soon.
I think that'd be great. And listen, we'd love to have you back on here. You're welcome anytime. Before we go, I want to throw out this one last thing for our viewers. I would say the majority of our viewers are of the adult space, but even they deal with issues, Zach. So what would you say? What are some signs? What do you have as suggestions for people who maybe feel like maybe they need some counseling or some mental health challenges are getting in their way?
Just that, like if you notice that things are starting to get in your way, that's probably when, you probably need to go see somebody. One of the things that I know I need to go probably see my therapist is like if I'm forgetting the code on my phone or, if I start like losing keys or like, something becoming a little bit more absent-minded, I've noticed, hey, probably need to take a break or like go see my therapist. But don't view it as something to where you have to be totally messed up in the head, because that's not what it is. Before you go see somebody, like, I like to look at it as you're enhancing your life. You're giving somebody that's non-biased, that's not in your everyday life, that can course correct some of your behavior patterns that, can make your life better. I mean, we podcast, we listen to self-help books. I mean, we do all that stuff, but like having somebody in person, there's not much that can really replace that. So do it as a way to enhance your life, as opposed to, oh, what are you're going because you're all messed up. I mean, we're all messed up to some extent. So
for people around the Clay County, Manchester area, how can they find you?
8 to 5, Monday through Friday at Advent Health Manchester. If I'm not gone somewhere or traveling or something. And I don't use much social media anymore. I hope that's not bad. But yeah. It's just because I don't know. I get home at the end of the day. I got too much. I got the dog to walk and all that stuff. But yeah, like there at the hospital in Manchester, and anywhere in between.
Nick Bejarano would be proud right now of the plug in there with Advent.
Yeah.
Zach, man, listen, it's made my day to get to have this conversation with you. I look forward to some more. I'd like to have you back on here when we can talk a little bit more about college hoops and Kentucky basketball too. I know you bleed blue.
Yes, sir.
You do. So would love to have some more of that conversation with you. I know me and Brady, we can talk on here for hours at a time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks everybody. Zach, we'll have you back on again. Until next time, you know the drill.